Podcast by Friday with Bill Griggs and Kingsley Grant. We help people to create their minimal viable podcast by taking bold action to defeat procrastination and to get their voices heard.
I am Kingsley Grant.
And I'm Bill Griggs.
And we are the hosts of Podcast by Friday. And this is episode 24. And on today's episode, Bill and I will be talking about the minimum recording equipment you need for your podcast. There are so many voices out there, so many people telling you that you need this, you need that, and you hear some stories of what Bill did. I won't say I, but you find it if I did it too. In our early days of purchasing equipment, what we learned from that, and these are some things we're going to share with you about our own lessons, our own journey, and what we believe are just the minimum recording equipment you'll need to get your podcast launched. Stay tuned. Hey, Bill, how's it going, man? It's great to be back behind the microphone, ready to do another podcast recording with you. How's things going on your side of town?
Oh, man, everything is great, Kingsley. I really am looking forward to this episode today. We've done quite a few episodes now. We're up at episode 24, and, that in itself is a nice feat because most podcasts don't go past 7 episodes. You know, guys will start a new podcast and never make it past 7. So we've kicked that all to the curb long ago.
You know, and the term they give to that is pod fade, right? So they fade away after 7 to 10 episodes, and that's it. But we've hung in there, and I think part of the reason sometimes people, I believe, do not continue because of the frustrations that come along the way. They may have some hiccups, or things may not work out, or technology may fail them, and they get so frustrated, right? We had something that happened recently, right?
Yeah, this is the first time we've had something like that happen in our 24 episode spread here. We had to re-record this episode.
We're doing that just right now, as a matter of fact. Because sometimes things fail you, and I think sometimes we can, especially as a new podcaster, it can become discouraged and think, "Oh man, I must be just me." It doesn't happen to the people who are veterans who've been doing this for a long time. But, we're here to tell you, no, it happens to the best of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the technical issue is all that we had, all centers around being prepared and doing maintenance and that sort of thing. So, knowing the status of things ahead of time before you push the record button. So, it's a teachable moment. If you are using a storage device to keep your podcast episodes on, make sure there's room on that storage device for more.
It's a great lesson. We learned it very well, the hard way, I guess.
Yeah. But you know what? That's one more thing that we've done and made the mistake and told you about it so you don't have to. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Yep.
And so what we want to talk about today, then, that will be helpful because we want to share with you what we had recorded. And we thought this episode was really right on time for you where you're at in your journey. As Bill mentioned, episode 24 is about minimum recording equipment you need for your podcast. And that is what we're going to cover in this episode today. Yeah.
Now, this is part of the series that Kingsley and I have been doing here in the Podcast by Friday world. That, since episode 19, we've been teaching you the actual steps that we took and the tasks that we had to go through in order to launch our podcast by Friday. A little backstory real quick. We started this podcast and conceived it and executed it in under a week. And the purpose wasn't to have a perfect podcast, but to have, the minimum viable podcast that had all the working parts that we needed and still got our message across without all the drama about waiting and thinking and overthinking and reanalyzing it. So if you are thinking about launching a podcast, it would be a great thing for you to go back through and listen through episode 19, episode 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and soon 25.
Yeah.
That'll be the steps that we used.
And it gives you a very good overarm, a very broad view, and also zooming in on the very specific things you need that we didn't realize we needed for ourselves when we launched our own podcast, and having been doing this for some time. And one thing I realized, Bill, this can be a very overwhelming topic sometimes because there are so many things out there. There's so many recording equipment, and it's almost like a smorgasbord of things. And people are wondering, what do I choose? Where do I start? Because everybody's beckoning and calling to them and say, you need this, get that. And some people get stuck around this one matter. You know, it's like going to a restaurant and have a menu with a million choices and you don't know where to start. I mean, have it ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah, man. That happens to me all the time. You know, I like The Big Bang Theory. I don't know if it's a TV show that you watch, but you know, one of the main characters there, the love interest, Penny, works at a cheesecake factory. It's a restaurant chain. It's apparently all across the country. And my wife and I finally went out to a cheesecake factory, and she had been before, but I had not. And they brought out a menu that was the size of a small city's telephone book. It had a million options on it. And I didn't know where to start. The waitress had to come back a couple of times. Says, "Have you chosen yet? I'm not even through the sandwiches yet. Let's get to the appetizer." So, there were too many choices for me to make a good, quick decision. I finally ended up ordering something like chicken or something like that.
You go to a safe bet, right? And that's why some people do something. They're so overwhelmed. They just grab something. Okay, I get a microphone. I get this. I get that because I can't be bothered. And I remember my wife and I had gone to dinner one time, and we had gone, and there was a person. People stand outside the restaurants trying to invite you in, and so we were walking by, and she handed us this menu just one of those, you could take it with you. And I'm looking at this, and I turned to my wife and said, "Honey, I don't know where to start on this thing. There's so many choices here." And I just kind of throw it away. I just kind of threw my hand up in the air and just said, "Forget it." And I threw the menu away. And that's why I think in the era of podcasting, when a person feels so overwhelmed, they may just throw their hand in the air and say, forget it, and get stuck around that. What I find is, some of the most successful fast food places that I know, like Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out Burger in California, they are successful because you go there. They only have maybe 6 or 7 items on the, In-N-Out may have 4 items, and 4, you can choose number 1, 2, 3, or 4, and people are just flocking to those places because they want to think about it, get me in, get me out. And that's why this episode today is going to be helpful. It's going to get you in and get you out.
Yeah. When we bring this back to the world of podcasting, you realize that there are literally hundreds of companies that make recording equipment, and there's a variety of things that they offer. But really, the focus of this show is about creating the minimum viable product, or podcast in this case, using the least amount of tools. And with that in mind, we're going to tell you in this episode what we use and why, how we record our podcast using the equipment that we've mentioned, and where do we get our recording equipment. So, at the end of this show, you'll be able to go out and make a decision in a day of what it is that you need to get your podcast out there. We're going to cut right through the confusion of the whole matter and help you zero in on what you need.
So let's start with that then, Bill, as you just kind of lay the groundwork for where we're going in this show. What do we use and why? So let's talk about that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's start with some of the recording equipment that we use. That might be a great place.
Okay.
To start. Well, let's start off. This is a vocal topic. The media that we create is all audio. And that all begins with a great microphone. And so the microphone is, what we use to get our sound out there. And there are a variety of choices out there. I know when I first got started, I was listening to another podcast, and they mentioned a particular style of microphone to use, and I went and got that. And in that case, it was the Blue Snowball from a company called Blue Microphones. And it was a good starter mic, but it didn't have the sound that I needed to get the job done. What did you start with, Kingsley?
I started with the Yeti microphone. Is a heavy, and people still use it today. I still have it sitting here. Huh?
It's the same company.
Yeah,
Blue.
Same company. Yeah, Blue, right. And so I bought that because I was recommended. And of course, I was just new at this. And the person that I was listening to, he was an expert and had been doing it for a long time. So of course, we do business with those we know, like, and trust. So I know him, like, and trust him. So I just went ahead and bought it at the time. And it was good. I mean, but it picked up every sound around me. I mean, anything that happened around me, it picked it up, So it kind of made my recording not as clear or as crisp as I wanted it. And a microphone is really essential and crucial to your sound. And a good microphone is really worth investing in. So I use the ATR, the Technica ATR now 2100.
Yeah, it's the Audio Technica.
Yeah, the Audio Technica. Thank you. Yeah,
2100. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I use that because it's an excellent microphone for podcasters, and so many podcasters I know use it. And what I like about it, it doesn't pick up the sound around me. And so this has been, and it's very mobile. It's not as heavy as my Yeti was, and so I've really just been sold on this from the very first time they came out and started promoting these microphones. As a matter of fact, I bought two, just in case at the time, and so that's what I use now. And as you're hearing me right now, I'm using my ATR or my Audio Technica ATR 2100.
Okay, yeah, that is also the mic that I use, and it's the one that I recommend that would be a great fit for folks in our audience who are launching a podcast. The Audio Technica ATR 2100, because there's a lot of good things about it. Now, you mentioned, Kingsley, that when you were recording, you heard a lot of background noise and things going on through your previous microphone. And that has to do with the type of input that the microphone takes. Now, in this case, these are cardioid dynamic microphones, the ATR 2100, and that's really the kind you need to block out all the background sound and just get your voice in there. So the ATR 2100 does that, and there's a lot of other cool features with it. Just to get a little bit technical for just a brief second. This microphone is packed with cool features, like you can use an XLR connector, which is the type of connector that you've seen on microphones for centuries. It's like a little plug-in thing in the back, a little silver plug-in. That'll plug in here. But if you don't have that, you can also plug in a USB cord and go direct to your computer with this microphone. That makes it very versatile because you can take it on the go with you and just use it with like your your MacBook or your laptop or whatever, and just plug it right in and start recording. It also has a headphone jack, so you can plug in a headphone and listen to what you sound like, and a volume control, and all that stuff is built in right into this microphone, and it's a very compact unit, and it does a great job.
It's so cool because I'm recording right now because you're using an XLR and how you're recording this show, but I record right into my laptop, and I use a USB cable that came with the ATR 2100, and it's straight into that, and there's nothing that, there's no in-between product that I'm using. I could use my record if I wanted to, and at times I've done that, but most of my times I just recorded. As a matter of fact, I saw someone post it in a Facebook group I'm a part of, and the person was saying how they have all this equipment, they spend money, hundreds of dollars on. And recently they had to do a podcast recording on the go and on the fly really quickly. And they use their ATR 2100 and plug it into their laptop. And the person was bemoaning the fact and saying, why did I spend all this money? Because this sounded even better than how it sounded using all the heavy equipment and the expensive equipment he had. And he's thinking that man, I'm onto something here. Maybe I just keep on recording my podcast straight into my laptop through my USB. So the point is that you have a good microphone in hand when you purchased the ATR 2100.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, by no means is this the only microphone out there.
Right.
There are some professional podcasters who've been around for years and have, massive in-studio equipment that use different microphones that cost many, many times more than this microphone does. A great example would be the Heil PR40 microphone. We'll put a link into that in the show notes if that's your path. But, if you're going to spend $300 to $400 on a microphone, then you're fairly serious about staying around. Whereas the ATR 2100 is about $60.
Yeah.
And sounds pretty close to the Heil PR40. If you'd like to dispute that statement, Heil, and you'd like to send us a PR40 to try and test and compare, we'd be glad to do that. But I don't think there's, and you never know.
we're not married to any of these right now. We don't know. It's not that we're making any money. We don't have any ties to this. So we're open to the idea. I know you have mentioned that the Heil is one of eventually you would love to have a Heil PR40. So that is on your bucket list, I think. I'm hearing you say before.
Sure. Yeah. But, for right now, for the level of podcast that I am putting out, I'm very well served by the ATR 2100. And, someday, maybe I'll be getting
if the Heil representative is out there listening right now and want to just fulfill the dream, then hey, go ahead and just do that. But something you mentioned earlier we talked about the noise around build, and I realized there's some noise we can also even go a bit further to help to keep the sound even to be a richer quality, and that's using filters, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do use filters. There's a couple kinds, but most important, I think, is that you get a pop filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that?
To get started with, a pop filter is a very fine mesh screen that goes between the microphone and you. It's usually round or whatever, and it sits right in front of the microphone. But what it does is it stops plosives from coming across your microphone. I didn't say explosive, I said plosive, which is, that's the P sound when you say Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. You notice when I just said
I'm
that.
glad you had to say that, not me.
There were no pops. But when you hear, the sound, that can be stopped by a pop filter. And I'm going to move my filter away from the microphone, and I'm going to say that Peter Piper thing again, without the benefit of the filter sound. You may hear a lot of rustling sounds going on while I do this. Okay, I've removed the pop filter, and I've removed every filter from it. So here goes. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, and I wasn't trying to say that I need to, but you can hear the p sound. So I'll say it again one more time. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Now I'll put the pop filter back.
Yeah, I can hear the difference.
Yeah, here goes with the filter. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So you can hear a difference. Yeah. So I'm going to put the filter back on.
And I think that's really, one of the things I find, and it's very inexpensive, but I think also what we have done, which you both and I do, we also have put the regular ball filter, over the microphone that, I forgot the name, they have a name for
the foam filter. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
And that, so we use double. We use the mesh filter around over the ball filter that goes over the microphone, which really, really make it even much clearer and take the sound away. So you want to make sure that and we have all the links in the show notes and show you where you can find those. But this is really a critical piece that you don't have the microphone by itself without having the filters over that when you're recording your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they really do help, and they'll make you sound better. And you see all the professional DJs and podcasters using them. There's a reason, because they actually do solve a problem. And for what it costs to get one, it's well worth getting it. It'll improve the sound of your podcast episode.
So we've talked about microphones, filters, and the cables so far that came with the ATR. But one thing I believe is so important, Bill, is when I'm recording, if having the right stand, because what came with the ATR 2100 is a small stand that we could use, and I travel with that sometimes. But it's desktop. Not a desktop stand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what I did was purchase a boom stand that is from the ground, because my desk right now doesn't have the place to put an arm stand, which you can talk about in a few minutes. But I use that boom stand from the ground, and I can actually put it right before my mouth and have my hands free to do whatever I want to do and keep on speaking about whatever it is I'm doing or recording. And that stand has been very, very helpful for me. But there are other stands out there that you have used also, and I like the one that you have because you have a that thing to keep it from make the sound. Mm-hmm. What's called that? It's
a boom arm microphone. And so there are a lot of different stands, and like we said, the ATR 2100 comes with a little desktop stand. The desktop stand, when you have your microphone on that, any sounds like me striking the desk might transmit up into the microphone, like, I had to do that really hard in order for you to probably hear the background. But I have this boom arm which has springs and holds the microphone up away from the desk, and there's a little shock mount holder around the mic, and it's basically O-rings or rubber bands that surround the microphone and keep it suspended. So if I accidentally hit, like I just tapped the mic, you might have heard
I saw it, but I didn't even hear it.
Yeah. So normally if I were on a table stand or something and I hit the mic, you would hear that sound transmit through. Well, this shock mount prevents that. Or if I'm leaning on the table or shaking the table or something, it doesn't transfer through. And as I was saying those things, I was doing those things just now. So, I was shaking the table and I was, leaning on it. And you didn't hear it. So, that's something to consider. The one I use, I got from Amazon. It wasn't an expensive proposition either. I think I spent less than $25 for the shock mount and the pop filter and the swing arm altogether. So the one I got was from Neewer, Neewer, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes for this episode.
And everything we're mentioning, we're going to show. You will find the links and at least a way to get that, and which brings me now to how we record our. Well, actually, we had the headphones. Yeah, we had our headphones because this is so important. Because I know I recorded someone recently, Bill, that was recording straight into her computer and had no headphones and was using the microphone that came with the computer. Mm. And I could not and still have not put that episode out because it's good content. And I said to her before that, I sent her ahead of time that let's try to find a quiet place and make sure you have the right headphone on because the sound doesn't play back into the recording. And it's so terrible. I can't even listen to it myself to actually put that out there. So the recording that was now is on the shelf because she didn't have number one, proper microphone, but she didn't have a headphone to keep the noise from, kind of going back into the recording. Mm-hmm. So a headphone is really important.
Yes, they definitely are. When I started out, I didn't have a decent set of headphones, and I really was missing out. But probably 2 or 3 episodes in, I realized I needed to hear what I sounded like at the time I was speaking, and I needed to, be able to block out the sounds of other things in the room, so I was just hearing whoever I was talking with. And when I started, I used just the earbuds that came with my iPhone.
I did too.
and it did a fairly decent job. You know, I will give the folks at Apple, their props. They designed a nice set of earbuds that, make people sound good. The good thing about the Apple earbuds is also it has a built-in microphone. So, I mean, if you were really bootstrapping and you couldn't afford an ATR 2100, you could conceivably create a podcast using your Apple earbuds and have a decent enough sound that folks wouldn't cringe. But decent headset is really important. And the one that I'm using right now, I got at Walmart, believe it or not. Amazon has them too. Any of the major box retailers have them, but it's made by Logitech. And it's a combination of a boom mic and headphones. And let me see if I can find the actual product number of this Logitech headset, because it's not really printed on the headset. But it's about a $40 headset. And it gives good sound. I only use the headphone part of it. I don't use the microphone because I have the ATR 2100, but it's a good fit. And while Kingsley's telling you what he uses, I'll be looking up that Logitech one.
Yeah, I go back to the Audio Technica microphone. I use a Technica Audio Technica headphone, and it's an ATH M20X, and I find it to be a very inexpensive but great quality headphone because it really blocks out the sound incredibly so. It plays back just, it's almost like a Bose type of thing. And I know, of course, Bose isn't a class by itself, but it's really close to that. And I really enjoy using it because I find it to be, like you mentioned, by blocking the sound, but the quality of the sound is incredible. And I got that off Amazon as well, which we have a link in the show notes about what I use, and a person can go ahead and if they want to look at that. It's not as expensive as a lot of headphones out there. So this is something very reasonable, and it keeps within what we're trying to do here is a minimum viable, product, podcast, and also equipment.
Yeah. And just to catch up here, the Logitech Clear Chat USB headset is the H390 as it is, and it's like $22 on Amazon. So yeah, either of these would make really nice. I'd actually like to try the Audio Technica headset that you're using because I like their mic so much. I'm wondering how their headset would be.
It's awesome. And I got this recommendation from somebody who is in the audio industry, and he is a podcaster, and he really recommended it very, very highly. So we have then the headphones. We talk about the microphones, the filters, the cables, the stands, the headphones. And these are some of the things we have used to as equipment. But we also have the way we record our podcast, and which also is, in your case, an equipment that you use to do recording. So you want to talk about that, Bill? Then I get into how I record on this side.
Sure. There's a couple of ways to record your episode. You can either do it directly into a computer like Kingsley does, or you can do it the way that I do it onto a digital recorder. Obviously, a digital recorder is going to be the more expensive way to go, but it gives you the as long as you remember to have plenty of space on your SD card, you will have a reliable backup of your file when you're done. Now, we're joking about this because it happened for the first time in 25 episodes. But when you consider there were 25 episodes or 24 episodes recorded in podcast by Friday, and there were also about 80 other episodes that had been recorded in my other podcast or just between our mastermind sessions onto this micro SD card before we ran out. I mean, you take it for granted you can store so much audio on it. So anyway, what I'm using is a microphone or a digital recorder from a company called Zoom, Zoom. Now, the one that I'm using is not your minimum recorder. I got the Zoom H6 because I was in podcasting for the long haul, and I figured that I wanted the best equipment now that I could use, not just to record my podcast, but also when I wanted to do my YouTube videos, because I do quite a bit of YouTube, etc. This digital recorder probably does it all. Okay. It has replaceable microphones that, you can swap out the different style of microphone on the top of it, and it'll take up to 6 channels of sound. It has a built-in mixer and all of this stuff right in this one little device that's not much bigger than
I mean, is that the recorder?
Yeah, it's about the same length as your iPhone 6 and about 3 times as thick.
Yeah.
We recorded our first episode live called On the Ledge. If you want to look at that, was podcastbyfriday.com/01. I believe that was our first episode, On the Ledge. And we recorded live comments from inside of the Sears Tower using this while we were standing in a crowd of people, and we got some pretty good sound with it. So this is what I use. It's the Zoom H6. Now, that's probably about a $300 digital recorder, but there are other solutions from the Zoom factory, like the Zoom H1 Handy, which is their bottom of the line, and I think that's less than $100. And that's a quick way to get into stereo digital recorder. Yeah, so that might be a way for you to go with the Zoom H1 instead of the H6. But we're talking about what I use. So,
right. Yeah. And I have the H4, which I don't use that often, and I know I need to because I realize my hard drive is getting filled up quicker when I record so much on my computer. And that's one of the advantages, I think, of having the digital recorder. You can always, like you mentioned, having the, sticks, those chips, whatever it's called, again, to put inside there, the microchips.
Yep, the SD cards, yep.
SD cards, right. So I record right into my computer, and I use which we did an episode, it's episode 25. We talk a lot more about the recording aspect of things using like in this case, my Ecamm, and I use call recorder, which I get through Ecamm. That is where I record my, like we're having right here, but I also do it through GarageBand, which we mentioned a lot more in episode number 25. So when that comes out, you'll want to make sure you listen to episode 25. We cover quite a deal into details more there, but I want to mention that I do my recording through that call recorder that comes with that I with Skype that helps me to keep the digital part, the audio part of it for editing later on.
Yep. There's other alternatives besides Zoom for digital recorders. I just happen to use them because I think they're some of the best ones out there. But you could use the Tascam DR-40, which is another popular digital recorder, if you like. And we'll have links to each of these digital recorders inside of the show notes for this episode.
And some of those links that we have, Bill, just to be for full disclosure, some of those links we do have like an affiliate, right? That with what it is that we're going to show in the show notes, right?
Yeah, we're what an affiliate relationship is companies like Amazon or others, when you put a link to a product on your webpage, Amazon, and somebody buys something from it, Amazon will send you, the website owner, a very small commission. We're talking 1 or 2% or something like that from the sale. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does generate some income that you can use to help pay for your web hosting and your podcast processing time and things like that. So, if that's something, that appeals to you, some product that you see on our page and you click through our link, that will help out the show. But we don't want to encourage you to buy things you don't need.
Yes.
That's not the point of that, the whole thing. The point of it is to make your life easier. If we provide information on a good product that we know works and you can just click on it and go there, maybe that helps you, and maybe that helps us. And so that's why we put affiliate links in there. So
it's a great way. I think that's really to me, it's really, I don't see it as something that a person could ever squeal over, because I just think it's on service. We're offering a service and they don't pay anything extra for it. And I think that's really just a reasonable transaction that we're offering, and say, hey, you know what? This is how to help us to keep the lights on here at Podcast by Friday, and just by using those links. So we've talked about then in this episode so far. I've covered what do we use and why, right? We mentioned about the fact that we use about the microphones, the filters, the cables, the stands, the digital recorder, the headphone, and the mixer, which is like the Zoom as well. We talk about that. We talk about how we record our podcast and the equipment we use to record our podcast. We now mention where they can go and get those recording equipment, and we have the links in the show notes at podcastbyfriday.com/24. If you go there, you'll find all the links in the show notes. We made it so much easier for you, so you don't have to go searching for it and figure out what we had talked about, because we have all the links provided there. So, Bill, what is that one call to action? Because you really had a good way of saying, hey, here's what you might need to do, and what that one thing that person can do now, having listened to this show, that would help to move the needle, the ball down the field for them.
Well, Kingsley, the thing that they need to do, or that they should do at this juncture, is just go to the page that we just talked about, podcastbyfriday.com/24. Click on the links to these products and see which one fits your needs, and go and get it, because you're going to need this to record your episode. Now, obviously, you don't need a digital recorder if you're going to be recording directly into your laptop, but you're going to need a decent microphone and a decent headset, and highly recommend the filters and stands. I personally would not try and start without those, but you can if you need to. If the holdup for you is, well, I can't get all this equipment, then do what you can with what you can and what you have, and get it out there. Don't let this be the stumbling block. But we've tried to select and show you products that we know and like, and that we use and trust that they're going to give us good service. And we tried to keep the total amount that you have to take out of your pocket down, because that's always a consideration. So my action step for you is to go to podcastbyfriday.com/24 and select your equipment and get it headed your way.
And also, don't forget, you can reach us by email. So you can email us at podcastbyfriday.com. And any questions you might have, you can reach out to us there. We read the emails, we get it directly, and we'll be able to get back to you on that to make certain that we are answering the question that you have, and that will help you to get started, because our goal, our one aim, is that you get this podcast out. The world is waiting to hear your voice, and we don't want it to be held up one more week. So let's get going on this.
Yes. And, Kingsley, when you just did our summary of the things that we'd covered, you mentioned one thing that we really did not cover, and that's a mixer. Okay. It was mentioned briefly, but you do not need a mixer as your one of the basic pieces of equipment that you can get started with.
I agree.
just wanted to get that out there before that. I use a mixer, but I bought a whole bunch of stuff before I knew what I was doing. When you get to the point that you will need a mixer, then there are some very inexpensive options to get. But, don't let not having a mixer hold you up, because you really don't need it.
I'm glad you caught that, Bill, and mentioned that, because when I was going on the list, I said, but we didn't really cover that much. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And really, I think, like you said so well, it's not something you need right now. What we mentioned earlier is if you have all of that, the microphone, the filter, the cable, the stand, I mean, man, you're good to, on a headphone, you're good to go.
I just thought of something, Kingsley, that will help the audience. And we were just talking about our affiliate relationships and things like that. I've got a plugin that I can put together a bundle, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
An ATR 2100 microphone, a headset, stands and cables, and they can just click one button. And again, this is an Amazon thing, not because Amazon is the be all end all, but because it's easy and I got a plug-in. All right, but they could push one button, get it all, know that they got everything they need arriving in the mail in 2 days if you're a Prime member or whatever, and takes away part of the headache from the whole process of going through it. If you trust our decision on what we think is a good fit for you, equipment wise, you can just push the button and go for that. That might be of help to our listeners now, and I'll put that up on the page.
Great idea. I think I'm glad you thought about that, Bill, because I think sometimes when we had to go, what did he say again? What did he say again? And so we are simply saying, hey, we have one bundle that will be really ready for you to go just click that. It's all there, and it's get you started on your way to your podcasting journey. And that's what we want for you so much. And we want to know when you get started. Let us know, because we want to celebrate with you, and just to say, hey, maybe find a way to reach out to you and see where you're at and so on. Again, so don't forget to email us at podcastbyfriday.com. And we have a Facebook group we want to encourage you to be a part of. You can go in and interact with us at facebook.com/groups/podcastbyfriday.
Yeah. Now, we really do want to know what it is that you choose and why. And if one of the recommendations we gave you wasn't good, we especially want to know about that, because we only want to give you, the best shot at what it is. If there's something that has gone down in quality since we got ours, we'd like to know about it. But the stuff we're talking about is good, and it does work. And, I think that can work for you. So please contact us at Podcast by Friday. And, let us know what you think. Maybe we'll have you on the show.
Never know.
All right. Fantastic. In this episode, we covered some really great things about, what the minimum recording equipment was that you needed for your podcast. We told you what we use and why, and how you could record our podcast using the equipment that we mentioned, and where you could go to get it. So I hope that this episode has been a good one for you, and that you'll continue to listen to this series while we share our secrets on how we get our podcast launched by Friday.
Now let's go make it happen.
Podcast by Friday, episode
24.
Blooper reel. Podcast by Friday, episode 24.
And on this,